This is Tom O'Connor of the Gulf Coast Legal Technology Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm here today with Rachi Messing, who's a senior program manager at the Microsoft legal team. We've been asked by our friend and colleague, Judge Xavier Rodriguez, who's a federal judge in the U.S. District Court in the Western District of Texas, to help him prepare a presentation for students of his in a class he teaches on eDiscovery at St. Mary's Law School. And Judge Rodriguez would like to have for his students an exposition or an explanation, if you will, of an actual eDiscovery tool so that they're going to see a real live demonstration. So what we thought we would do is walk through what Microsoft is doing with eDiscovery in Office 365 these days, which is actually quite compelling. I've seen some demos over the last 6 months or so, and I'm really excited about what's going on because it's all being bundled into the Office 365 platform. So, Rachi, why don't you kind of set the stage here before we're gonna do actual individual segments based on the classes that Judge Rodriguez teaches, and he's given us a list of those. But before we do that, we thought we'd do a general overview. So maybe you can set the stage here for what we've got with Office 365.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks, Tom, for asking me to join in this. You know, Office 365 is something that a lot of people, hopefully most people have already heard about. It's not a eDiscovery platform. So let's start there, as opposed to most of the other applications that when discussing eDiscovery, then you're looking at the review platforms, the collection tools, things like that. Office 365 is a productivity suite. So think about it in the same terms as you would, Google Docs and the Google applications, Google Apps. Amazon has their offering, but Microsoft Office 365 brings together all kinds of different applications. Some of those are the things that you probably have used throughout your life utilizing a computer. Things like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and Excel, Outlook for your email, all of those types of things. But then it also has a number of other applications, things that help you in other ways to be more productive within a organization. And one of the big pieces is because it's a cloud-based productivity suite. So all of the data that is being generated is stored within what's called a organization's tenant. So it's within their specific area that is being kept all of the user data and company data. So for example, if you're using Outlook for email, then the email is running through what's called the Exchange servers on the back end. And all of that Exchange data is actually being stored up in the cloud, specifically in an area for your organization. So anything that we're going to be talking about in terms of how eDiscovery is utilized within Office 365 and what the impact of it is, it's really about how that data is staying in place in the organization's tenant in order to allow the data to remain secure. It's protected within that environment. It's highly scalable. So if you go from you're a small organization, you start growing bigger, it's very easy to grow because you don't have to worry about any of your servers or data centers or anything like that. And it's not just email. It's also the Word documents and anything that an individual user creates can be stored in their OneDrive. So OneDrive is basically a private storage area where each user gets space where they're able to put all their Word documents, Excels, pictures, whatever they need to put. There's things like SharePoint for managing content together, where teams can come together to organize and to put data for whether it be documents. You might have your financial SharePoint site where you're putting all your finance documents. It's not owned by an individual, but by a group. You also have one of the newest tools that have become available called Teams, which is a customizable chat-based team workspace. Basically, it brings together persistent chat where users are able to either chat one-on-one with each other or put chats in what's called a channel in order that people can go ahead and share knowledge. When someone gets added to a team, then all of the prior chats become available to them so they can very quickly get up to speed. It also gives you areas where, again, you can share documents and share forms and all kinds of other things together within that space. But the reason why we wanted to kind of walk through all these different tools from a productivity standpoint is because all of this data that's being created is all discoverable, right?
That's correct. If you're involved in litigation or potential litigation under the definition under the federal rules, you have or may have the obligation to preserve information or data which could potentially come to play in that litigation. So you're faced with the task of gathering it from multiple locations and preserving it. Let me just ask as a quick aside, though, Rachi, I should note we're actually using Teams right now to chat with each other and do this recording. Is that part of the Office 365 suite now?
Yep, it is. So this meeting and this recording is going to be discoverable. It's going to potentially come back to haunt us.
Well, hopefully you and I won't be involved in any litigation about this, so we're okay.
I certainly hope not. So, okay, so we've established that you've got all of these different types of tools for creating data and managing data, and really being collaborative, working together with your team, with your company, with whoever you may need to work and collaborate with. But when it comes to the compliance side of things, which eDiscovery is a part of, there's a separate portal that's created called the Security and Compliance Center, which gives us access to all different types of tools that an admin would need. And that might be the IT admin, it might be a specific privacy admin, a security admin. So all of the different tools that they might need are brought together in this portal to allow us to access the data and do whatever we need to do. So that could be, as I said, it might be a privacy admin who they have a requirement to deal with privacy requests and dealing with GDPR and data subject requests. It could be someone who is in charge of data retention and classification. So you need to go ahead and set up labels that you want to apply to data automatically in some cases, or user-generated labels. You might want to go ahead and classify data that is sensitive based off of it matches certain criteria, and you want to flag that data where it lives. So again, we're not talking about doing exports here and then dealing with it in another system. This is all dealing with the data at the source and putting flags on that data in order to make it either more manageable so that you can identify it later, or it might be that you want to say after a certain amount of time, this type of data should be deleted, or maybe this specific type of data needs to be kept for a certain number of years. So I've got all kinds of different policies that I can create here that would say that if I've got, for example, in this test policy, if I've got data in Exchange, OneDrive, or SharePoint, then I need to retain it for 7 years if it has certain types of sensitive information. So I can set up all kinds of customizable policies. And again, why do we discuss this, even though the goal of this discussion is about eDiscovery? Because all of these things, since they're at the source, they impact the eDiscovery workflow and the eDiscovery process.
This is,
Now,
and if I might interrupt, Rocky, this is probably a good point to mention the EDRM, the Electronic Discovery Reference Model, which gives a flow chart, a simple flow chart about the different stages of eDiscovery. And we are now at the far left, or the beginning of that flow chart, and talking about info governance. For folks who've seen the chart and are not quite clear what that means, this is what we're talking about here.
exactly. It's all of the pieces in terms of managing your data in place, having a good understanding of what that data is, and either properly retaining it, keeping it, or properly disposing of it. So we actually even have a data disposition flow, which can allow you to, if I've got that data where I've said after a certain amount of time it needs to be deleted, I can go ahead and run it through a data disposition flow where a compliance officer can approve it prior to it being removed from the system itself.
Right.
But the key point that we are going to be talking about over the next few sessions is obviously the eDiscovery pieces, which is the pieces that are going to allow us on a case basis. So this is more on a reactive basis where you've got some type of event, whether it be litigation, whether it be an employment matter, whether it be an internal investigation, SEC regulatory investigation. Really, any time that I need to potentially preserve and identify and deal with data for a specific matter, that's where we're going to be dealing here under the eDiscovery piece of the system. So before we wrap up this overview, Tom, any other questions in regards to the tools and what we've kind of walked through so far?
Well, yes, a couple of questions. You mentioned how this is all web or cloud based, and to that point, how is pricing handled on this? I know, for example, that I use Office 365 in my business, but I pay for just a regular subscription on a monthly basis of, I forget what it is, $14 a month a user or something like that. What is needed to get to this segment of Office 365, if anything additional is needed?
Yep. So in general, from a corporate perspective, so a business that's using Office 365, there's three general, at least today, three general buckets of licensing that you can have. You can have, and they're referred to as E1, E3, and E5. Okay. E1 is just giving an end user email, and that's pretty much it. E3 gives them access to email and all of the other productivity tools. So, Word, Excel, et cetera, where I can actually install those on my computer. So I've got the local client, so if I come in here and I go to Word and I open up Word or Outlook or whatever it is, then I've got that within my local PC or my laptop. As well as giving the ability from a compliance perspective, I can do things like I can apply manual labels to my data from an information governance standpoint, and basic eDiscovery searching and preservation, or I should say the other way around, preservation and searching is available within that E3 bucket. The E5 licensing gives us the access to advanced eDiscovery, which is what we're going to be really diving into, which adds on not just the preservation and the searching, but also a lot more ability to do things with the data in place, the ability to run all kinds of different analytics on the data, and the ability then to export that data out in a format that is ready to go and be utilized within one of the review tools that might be needed later on when I need to have a team of attorneys who might need to get access to that data.
So I'm a small business. Can I buy an E5 license?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's no restriction. It's only large corporations, large law firms. This is straight per user licensing.
Correct, per user licensing.
And
so the trick though is that it's not on the user who's running the case. So it's not on the admin, but it's on the user whose data is being run against.
You anticipated my question. How is that handled? Okay. And is that something, if people wanted to get more details on that, they could go to the Office 365 website? Where would they learn more about this?
Yep.
In terms of the licensing?
Yeah, they can just go straight to the Office website and then pick for the enterprise licensing, or which is right. All the enterprise and big business licensing. But it doesn't really mean an enterprise. Anyone can buy it. It's just the highest level of licensing that gives you access to all of these different tools.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that price in the neighborhood of $35 a user per month? Is that correct?
That today, that's about the list price for the highest level.
Right.
And I should mention also that there's all kinds of variations on the licensing. So one of the variations that someone can do is if they have E3 licensing, then they can just add on advanced compliance instead of going all the way to E5, because the licensing, as I said in the beginning, Office 365 is not a eDiscovery suite. Right? It's not an eDiscovery platform. It's a productivity platform. So the licensing is not about eDiscovery. It's about all the other things that you get with it also. So for example, one of the differences between E3 and E5 is that you get additional Skype telephony, that you can make outside calls using it, use it as your phone service. You get things like Power BI with it. So there's a lot of other tools that are available that come with that E5. So if you really, just looking for the compliance features, you can do the advanced compliance add-on to E3, which is about, it just adds a couple of dollars onto that price instead of, I think the difference between E3 and E5 is about $15 per user.
And my point in bringing all that up is not to make a sales pitch here, but to let people know the affordability of this, that this is an interesting scale of pricing because it makes it affordable for small businesses, small law firms, as well as for large corporations or large enterprise settings. And it's, I think, somewhat unique in that aspect. And that kind of begs the question. So you mentioned that sort of add-on to E3. I was going to ask what happened to E4 there. We went from E3 to E5. Sort of like the Boeings and the 737, and what happened to the 727?
Exactly, or the 740.
Yeah. So yes. Okay, so if you're really primarily interested in eDiscovery, there is an easy way to do that within the E3 structure. If you don't think you're going to utilize all the other aspects here.
Yeah, exactly. And the key points are that really it's making these tools available that any corporation has it within their tenant. They're usually already paying for any, especially a large corporation, but even a small business that is utilizing Office, they have at least the starts of, the basic, the foundations of these capabilities are all there. And if they have something that comes up, a specific event, very easily they can add on these additional tools to really get the full benefit out of it. So as we walk through all the tools over the next few sessions, we'll see. But the key is that the data is in place, it's staying secure, it's taking a lot of the risk out of moving that data out, it's taking a lot of the human error out of having to move data around, and it's able to be done in an affordable way.
Excellent. And any other overviews? As I mentioned, we have a list from Judge Rodriguez of individual course sessions that he teaches, and so we're going to dive into those one by one. But before we begin with that, are there any other general remarks you'd like to make here, or observations about the tool? I guess I should say that brings to my mind, where are we in the developmental cycle here? Is development of new features ongoing? Will this be something that's a product that's under evolution as we talk?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. Office 365 as a cloud-based system, it is something that is forever being updated. So today, when we're doing this recording, we're in mid-February. We're going to be walking through some of the features that are being released actually right now. As you can see on the top of the screen, it says, it's in public preview, which means that it's generally not available to all users yet. By the time this recording is released, it will be. But the system is always being updated. The tools are being added to. They're looking at how do they enhance performance, how do they enhance features within the tool set. So it is something that most people growing up today are used to a app-based environment where they're always getting updates and things are changing very quickly. In a lot of large corporations, it's something that they've had to come to terms with and adopt over the last few years. This approach of the tool sets rapidly advancing and changing. Sometimes week to week, month to month, you're going in and you're seeing new features automatically being added in. So it's something that Microsoft is definitely heavily investing in. It's something that my team, I'm on the legal team working with the eDiscovery internally at Microsoft. So not on the product side, but rather the actual, we're dealing with cases and investigations. We're dealing with those same things, and we appreciate the fact that new features become available. And when something isn't exactly the way that it should be, then the product team takes that feedback, and usually within a month or two, we're seeing those new features based on the requests coming into place that we're able to start utilizing them as quickly as possible. But it is something that you gotta keep on your toes and stay educated about.
Well, and I think you make a great point, which is that I gave your title earlier as senior program manager on the legal team. You're not working in a lab developing applications or software somewhere in a vacuum. You are actively working with the Microsoft legal team on litigation that they handle on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so that this is a real life experience tool, and adjustments that are being made as a result of your working with that team. I think that's really important, and it's a real world live lab, if you will.
Yeah. That it is, but it's one that my team has really embraced, and what we found was that as opposed to some of the older ways of doing these things, Tom, you and I have both been in this industry for a long time, and we've seen lots of evolution through the days and through the years. But what we've seen by utilizing these tools in Office 365 is drastic cost reductions in terms of what our team overall our budget is and what we need to spend. And that's even though internally at Microsoft, for example, the amount of data per custodian has gone up in the last 10 years by 20 times.
Yes.
So, it's a massive growth in the amount of data, but our costs have actually come down by 80%.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, especially for the students. You and I know, Rachi, because as you said, we've worked in this field for far longer than either one of us want to admit. But everything we know about document review and handling documents in eDiscovery is that 60 or 70% of the ultimate cost comes at the actual review stage. And to cut down on those costs, to corral those costs, if you will, to significantly reduce those costs, we want to have a tool like this, which lets us get involved at the front end, very early in the front end. You used the word reactive earlier. This is a proactive tool, which will help us reduce data that's finally exported to a review, and we'll talk about that in one of the sections later. But that is ultimately the goal here, is to reduce your data sets to the point where they're manageable, and thereby your costs become manageable as well. Would that be a fair statement?
I think that's a very fair statement.
Great, great. Well, I think unless you have any other comments, we can wrap up this session. We'll look forward to talking in the sessions to come about some of the individual points that the judge has given us.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Rachi.